All right, welcome back, friends. This is M-Dog, and so I've been thinking about this video for a little while. The most recent one I made was actually talking about this setup of the Poseidon Sensei with the Regal 22S. And so I've thought a lot about that combo. I've also used that reel a good bit in the last couple of days. Have a much better sense of how much I like that reel, which, spoilers, is quite a lot. And I felt like it was time that I could talk a little more directly about a comparison between the Regal 20 and the Taiga C30. And really give you like my preference, which is going to have a little bit of a caveat to it, and there's just no way around it. So let me just kind of talk through this for a minute here and tell you my preference, and then we'll actually just do a little bit of fishing with both reels with two different setups here. We're going to be fishing at the 41. You know, there's some decent cod, saithe, and stuff here, and not that we're going to necessarily have, get lucky enough to hook into something big while we're making this video, but at least we'll fish with them a little bit. So let's go ahead and cut to the chase here. Let's look at these two reels. Remember, we're talking about the Regal 22S, the Taiga C30. I wanted to be able to just like quickly look at these. These are very close to the same price. I've got the prices as the Taiga C30 at basically 10,500 silver, and the Regal is basically 8,800. So it's about a 1,500 silver difference thereabouts. And so in the big scheme of things, especially when you're talking about the end, the highest level in this game, that's about the same price, right? I mean, that's pretty close. Obviously, these are competing reels at that point. And I think they're both very affordable for the Norwegian map. It's about to me, the like lowest level that you would really feel comfortable going is the Regal 22S, Taiga C30, or maybe something like the Steelhead C30. And I've just never used that one. It also isn't above 60 on the mech weight. So I think there's just really good reason why either the Taiga C30 or the Regal 22S is a better deal. But, there may be some other considerations. But to me, these two reels compete as if you want to have a solid conventional reel to start your fishing at Norway. These are the two reels you're thinking about, or two of the reels. Now, you may not be looking for an entranceway conventional reel because you might have a Venga already, for example, or a Tagara, or even something fancy like the Zyman Centauri. I mean, this has got 23.5 max drag. We're not going to have the same mech weight. We're not going to have the same spool size, but it's strong enough that if you had that, you're not going to go down to a 16.3 or a 15.4, even though these would still have some advantages when you look at their spool size and potentially mech weight, although I would have to check. The Centauri may actually have a better mech weight than I'm giving it credit for, but you know what I mean. So it's possible you're not even in the market, but if you are in the market for one of these two, if you're new to Norway or you're planning your time at Norway and you're looking for a conventional reel, after using both of these, I think one of these two reels would be a really good option. And if I had to just choose one, it would be the Taiga C30, the Beluga Taiga C30. But the only reason why I say that is that reel has more flexibility. It has a heavier mech weight. It's tested up to at least what I have listed as that other people have tested this. I mean, I can't verify this. These are not official RF4 numbers, but my understanding is a Taiga C30 has a mech weight tested up to 109 kilos. And that's, this has been known for a long time. People, including me, have used this reel to fish for catfish long before Norway came out because it was affordable, but it had a heavy enough mech weight that you could lock it up on a catfish. Once, it was tired enough, even a trophy-sized catfish, you could lock it up and have a chance to bring that fish in. So And who knew before Norway came out, and you know, maybe you locked your stuff a lot if you were used to doing catfishing, or some people maybe did it more, but now at Norway, I feel like it's just something we all are getting used to, this idea. Not everyone, I think there are some exceptions to that. But by the way, if you are an exception to that, if you refuse to lock your friction brake, then your thought process on what reels you're prioritizing might be pretty different. Because one of the major factors we look at when we're comparing these reels, certainly I look at, is the mech weight, is the max load that the reel can handle before it comes apart, right? So just throwing that out there, if you're not into locking it at all, then you're probably looking at these options from a little different perspective. So I'm telling you that my overall choice is still the Taiga C30, but again, that's only because of the flexibility. If you know that you're going to save up for a more powerful reel, that you're not going to ever try to use the Taiga C30 and lock it up in that hot, you know, at 100 kilos or 90 kilos or whatever. If that's not how you're going to use it, then I would lean the other direction. I actually enjoy using the Rigal way more. There's a lot of reasons why I prefer the Rigal. The one thing I'm saying, though, is that without knowing everyone's particular circumstances, if this is possibly the only reel you're going to use at Norway for a long time, there's just no way around that it gives you more options. You can catch or target more fish with the Taiga C30, and I'll show you why and kind of how you potentially could set up a rig with this Taiga C30 in just a minute. So those are my options. Now, I mean, those are my overall thoughts. Let's get into the minutia of it a little bit, actually, while we fish. So I'm going to start off with the second place, which in some ways is my favorite of the two, the Rigal 22S. It's not as flexible. It doesn't have as high a mech weight, so I can't give it the victory here. I've got to still advise you Taiga C30 without knowing your particular circumstances. But if you're not just looking for one reel to go for as long as you can at Norway, there's a lot of reasons why, again, you might consider this one instead and then start saving for the next reel. I think it just depends on how casual you are in the game. Is it realistic that you play enough that you would get the next reel? I think that's kind of the decision point. All right, so you see how we have it set up here? I'm using about as big a lure I can use with this rod. You see how the test is up to 190. So we don't have a drop shot or anything. We're just using a good size pilking lure here. Let's go ahead and get this thrown in, and I will start talking about why I have enjoyed this reel so much. So again, I've done a lot of fishing with it now. It seems like it is putting up with the amount of fishing, and the wear is not happening very quickly. I would say the same thing about the Taiga C. I've used that reel a ton, and it is starting to gather some wear, but it's taking a long time to get there. Okay, so one of the, I think we have that weird perking bug. I know how to fix that. All right, hey, pretty quick fish here. One of the reasons I will tell you that I really like this reel is that for such a low price, it's got 2 gear ratios, and especially in its top gear ratio, so the 641, your average fish, this reel brings the fish in about as fast as any reel I've used. I mean, this isn't anything scientific here. It's just, this is the sense I have, is that it really brings fish in at a nice speed. And so I appreciate that about this reel. And it's one of the reasons why it's so fun to use, because it's just so efficient. You know, as long as the fish isn't too strong to, power in with this setup or with this reel, then it just, feels like it's moving right along at a very nice efficient clip as you reel stuff in. So it's got 2 gear ratios. It does have a mech weight of 74 kilos. So you can easily set this up with 60 kilo leaders if your rod allows it. Now on this setup, 60 would be really close because this load capacity is only 63.7. So I choose to go 55. It also allows me to do some testing with 55 kilo fluorocarbon leaders, which I don't know that fluorocarbon is any better at Norway than your regular leader materials. But, you know, I get to play around with it a little bit, so that's kind of fun. It certainly doesn't seem to hurt from what I've seen. All right, this is going to probably be a pretty decent sized safe. So we'll go ahead and lock it up. I've talked about when to lock fish up and kind of what that means and how that affects your equipment in other videos. So I won't go greatly into details here, but just remember, you want to be careful when you first lock it up. You want to make sure that you're watching the tension bar. You kind of have a sense of what's going on to make sure that you're not, the fish still isn't going to be too strong to keep it locked. This one seems fine. You see the difference in the speed of which I can reel it in the top gear ratio versus the low gear ratio. And this is one of the reasons why I really like this reel, because the Taiga C only has the 1 gear ratio. So that's just kind of what you're stuck with. By the way, that is a really nice European place. That is very cool. Okay, let's go one more fish here, and then we're going to switch over to the Taiga C. And I can at least catch a couple fish on that, hopefully. But let me think. So we've got a really nice size spool. Let's see, we're using 60 kilo line is on here, and at 60 kilos we're getting 332 meters of line, which we certainly could hook into some fish that would, you know, be a problem. This setup is not foolproof against the larger fish at Norway, but for most of the fish, especially if you're strategic about the size lures and spots you're fishing in, this is just a really nice setup. I have actually enjoyed using this this particular setup so much that I anticipate that when I'm fishing 34 and 41, unless I start catching fish that I just can't get in with this setup, I will probably mostly use it, because with this affordable of a reel, it's just going to be so much cheaper to do repairs when it needs repairs. You know, my Cardinal has probably been the reel that I've caught the most fish on since I've, at Norway. And it's a stronger reel than this, but it takes a beating, and it's just a lot more expensive than this reel is to fix. So it is really nice having a less expensive reel, but that I still have some, pretty good confidence that most fish I'm going to catch, especially in these kinds of situations, fishing on the 34 and 41 bank, this seems to do really well. I was pretty impressed with how quickly we had these 2 bites, to be frank. I mean, we are using a little bit bigger. Ooh, there we go. This is what we wanted. All right, I'm gonna lock it. I think we're still gonna be okay, but let's gear down and see how this goes. So this is probably just a really nice safe. What I've noticed on this setup is 10 kilos on a safe is about where the break point is for when I need to lock it up versus safe. If it's less than 10 kilos, I seem to be able to, once that initial pull's over, I seem to be able to get it in fine on friction brake 29. If it's more than 10 kilos, then I get a lot of pull happening still, and so it's better to be locked up. So let's see what size this one is. And you see, because the gear ratio still isn't that low, 381, you're still pulling fish in really quick in the lower gear ratio. which probably means if you do start getting to really big fish, it's going to be hard to get them in. But oh my goodness, 15 kilo poor beagle, not what I was expecting, but that is very cool. Wow, that is so cool that we just got that fish while doing this, man. That was really neat. Okay, so let me just quickly show you why the Taiga C has to be the choice if you want the most flexible. Now you notice I'm putting this on a Poseidon. I mean, this is a medium boat rod. This is normally what I use, like the most expensive, biggest reel available on. This is not the ideal rod. It just happens to be the only rod that I have that has a high enough load capacity for me to even show you what I'm talking about. But theoretically, with the Taiga C, it has 109 max weight of the mech, right? Or max load. And so you could do something like this. You know, on that last setup, remember, we were running 55 kilo. This is, I mean, it's not doubling it, but it's almost doubling it. I mean, it's in the neighborhood, right? It's up to 91 kilos. And really, even at 110, you're just barely over. So you would have to remember to put the leader on. And the reason why I'm not going any higher than 91, first of all, you're somewhat limited in what range the leaders are made in, like what even options you have. But also, this does have some wear on it. So I don't want to take any chances. I'm coming way under its supposed max load. But you can see on the right rod, and there's a Nordmaster, which is a light boat rod, I believe, that it also has a higher load capacity. I think it's around 90 or so, maybe a little higher, and a pretty flexible test. So like that kind of rod, which I don't have one of those, but that would probably be what if you wanted to be a really aggressive Taiga C30 player, you might do that. Notice that we do have 356 meters of line, even with this big line on there. Taiga C30 has a huge spool. We're using a big ol' Hunter lure because we have plenty of test range on this, and we're able to have all of the other stuff on here too. So let's see how this goes. I actually don't use my Taiga C30 like this ever. I mean, this is way more load capacity pressure than I typically put on the Taiga C30. I usually use it with 45 kilo liters. This is normally what I use for very small fish, and obviously not on this rod. If you look at the wear of the Taiga C30, remember I have not repaired it yet, and I've used it a lot since being here. I might have done grease, but I haven't done any of this. But a lot of fish have been caught here. I mean, I do think that this Taiga C30 is very sturdy. And it probably does help that I'm usually not overloading it greatly. You know, if you're going to go this aggressive with the reel, then you might see a little bit more aggressive, you know, wear and tear forming on it. You know, I don't normally use this big of lures on these banks either. This could be a little difficult getting a bite. We'll see how it goes. But how cool was that poor beagle coming in on that last setup? Man, that was fun to see. And it shows you, now a 15 kilo poor beagle is a small one, but it does give you an idea. I mean, that's a strong fish. And we were still, you know, in the range where we were having no difficulties at all. You know, we weren't having to let it run at all or anything like that. So it's just pretty cool. We may have to put a smaller lure on here if we don't get a bite pretty quickly. We won't wait too long. I knew that if we could hook into a fish on this setup, there's at least, you know, a decent chance we might find something a little on the bigger side. I was kind of expecting, you know, if we did hit something, it might be a cod. That's one thing I've noticed recently at 41 on this bank, is that the cod have been pretty active. But Yeah, this might just be a little too big. We'll see. Let's just kind of let it settle back down. See what we can get going here. We'll pull it up and let it drop again. So I don't know if while we're just sitting here waiting for a bite, I don't know if I made this clear, but in case I didn't, in any other circumstance other than you wanting the most flexibility possible with this reel, in other words, the Taiga C30, you can go for catfish. You can set it up like this and go for a little bit larger fish than you can the Rigal. But any other situation, I would prefer the Rigal. I like the dual speed. I like the way the speed in which you reel fish in. It just feels good using it. You know, it just would be my preference. I mean, I think the Taiga C looks very cool, but after using that Rigal, I think for me, if they were both suddenly gone and I was choosing which one I wanted, given that I already have stronger stuff, at this point I would choose the Rigal. That's not to take anything away from the Taiga C30. I have loved using it, but I really think the Rigal is just amazing. So the only reason why I give the overall nudge to this reel is, again, because it's just not knowing your particular circumstances. This reel does give you a little more flexibility, a little more range, which for some people is really important. Because like I said, if you're a more casual player, or if you're going to save for a long time to maybe get one of the most expensive reels in the game, this just allows you to approach different spots, different setups with a little more flexibility than the Rigal does. But if you're just using it really for what this size reel is probably best for, and you can be pretty disciplined about that, then I do. I just really like that. Let's just throw the 200 in there. I just really like that that Rigal a ton. All right, we're gonna try to just get a bite here. Still a pretty good size lure. It's a 200 instead of the 100, but technically, I mean, realistically, we should be able to get a little faster fish bite than the Hunter 400 or 450, whatever it was. All right, there we go. Let's see what we got here. All right, let's do the small perking a little bit. We are at that time of day where sometimes the bite rate slows down the most. And we could still, you know, throw in the smaller stuff and get the fast bite rate. But I was just trying to at least catch something a little bit on the bigger size, but that might have to be done another time. pulling a little bit. I mean, obviously if we lock this, it's just going to be no chance. So, but in terms of efficiency, I'm telling you, having that second speed, you know, to be able to go down where this only has the 3-3-1 gear ratio, to have the flexibility with the gear ratio on the Rigal is really nice. And in that higher gear ratio, I think that's why it just feels like it can reel in your small to medium-sized fish so quickly. .4 cusk. Don't you know it? Okay, so there is at least one fish on each of these setups. And again, this is not how I would normally use this setup, the Taiga C30. I was really doing this as an example of how aggressive you could be with the Taiga C30. But, you know, how do I normally use this? I normally use this with this setup right here, the Ocean Queen. I'll put the Taiga C30 on there. I'll put 45 is I think what I normally put, 45 line. I'll grab the 43.2 leader, whether it's jig head or whatever. And then I'll put the drop shot on there with the shrimp, you know, like maybe the 6.501 or whatever I'm using. And I'll catch a ton of small stuff, safe, you know, safe mackerel, the other small stuff, occasional, you know, pollock or haddock, whatever. But we're not ever really getting into fish because I'm, you know how to really target those. We're not getting into fish that are going to get us into trouble. So that's how typically I use my Taiga C30. I'm just saying you can get a lot more aggressive. And then this is how I've been using the Rigal 20, because I haven't just been targeting small stuff. I've actually been doing something like this. So 110, because then I can fill out this and have some drop shots underneath it. And obviously now that I have drop shot unlocked, anytime I'm actually trying to fish, you know, to get use of a happy hour or fishing for silver per hour kind of thing, or trying to get, I mean, typically I'm using drop shots because it just increases the bite rate so much. So, it's just been a blast. And I think I want to say my final message is I prefer the Rigal 22S. And if you have this reel or you decide to get this reel, I do not think you'll be sorry. I think it's an incredible reel. It's a lot of fun to use. The reason why I'm still just saying the overall winner without knowing your particular circumstances is the Taiga C30, just because it gives you the most flexibility. It's like a default win. It doesn't really earn it. There's so many ways in which I think the Rigal is more fun and a better reel in a lot of different ways, but in the way that counts the most in some sense, you know, not knowing your circumstances, I got to give the edge to the Taiga C30. So there's my very convoluted and long way of telling you that these are two amazing reels that I have enjoyed using a ton. I've caught a lot of fish on both of them now, especially the Taiga C30, but I'm planning on using the Rigal a lot, especially at 34 and 41, the way the fishing's been going. It's just the perfect reel to make a lot of silver and catch a lot of cool fish on those spots. Okay, folks, that'll wrap it up for now. As always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Tight lines. Let me know what your experiences have been with either of these reels, or if, you know, whatever reel you've been using, maybe that is similar. How you've kind of gotten going, built your system to get earning money, silver at Norway. Would love to hear your experiences. I think a lot of people have been warming up to both of these reels. So if that, you know, includes you, let me know what your experiences have been like. See you next time.